simple cell structure that can be that can be seen in the figure above. Some bacteria are spherical and some are rod-shaped, may exist in short chains of cells. Most bacteria are few micrometer in length and can only be seen with uh, light and electron microscopes. 1 micrometer is 1,000th of a millimeter, and bacterial cells are surrounded by cell walls. The cells of some bacterial species are surrounded by the slime capsule, and there is no nucleus, just a loop of DNA within the cytoplasm. Bacteria often have additional loops of DNA inside their cytoplasm called plasmids. The structure of bacteria differs from animal and plant cells as they do not have chloroplast or mitochondria. Some bacteria have extensions called flagella, singular flagellum, for moving through water and other fluids. Okay, here the rod-shaped bacteria are called as cocci. The ball-like are called as cocci. The rod-like called as bacilli. The spring-like are called as spirilla, and maybe having spores around their body. G. Maybe moving with the help of flagella or solitary, which are not moving. Uh, Next are the viruses. Viruses are not cells. They are particles made up of genetic material, that is DNA or RNA, surrounded by a protein coat. And by most of the scientists, they are placed on the borderline of the living and non-living because they show some of the characters of living and some characters of non-living. And they are even below than that of the cellular level. So they are not considered as cells. And the genetic material is composed of few genes that code for the proteins that form the coat, and maybe other proteins that help it to reproduce. Viruses are parasites that enter the cells of another organism, the host, in order to multiply. Viruses take over the host cells and direct it to make new viruses. Viruses are not classified in any of the kingdoms described here. All the organisms classified in five kingdoms have cells. Viruses do not have cells and so are classified in the different way. Their classification is based on the type of genetic material and protein code that they have. Now, here is a comparison between the characteristics of viruses and bacteria. So, what are the characteristics of viruses and bacteria, whether they are living or non-living? Uh, so, viruses are placed on the between the living and non-living, and bacteria true living organisms. Next, characteristics: the cellular machinery, lack of cellular machinery in viruses, but it contains a cellular machinery in bacteria. Reproduction. Viruses require living host or cell to reproduce, whereas bacterium can reproduce itself. And what are the benefits to the humans? Viruses have limited number of benefits for the mankind, and the bacteria have large number of benefits for the mankind. Uh, Next, my dear students, we are talking about dichotomous key. So, dichotomous mean two branched key. So, the key in which there are two branches which are visible features and anybody can identify them. So, for example, we have to take two leaves and they are belonging to different trees and they can be classified in this way by the dichotomous key like this. Take six different leaves and label them A to F. Put the six leaves out in front of you and think of the question that will divide them into two groups. Write down the question. Now think of questions to divide each group into two. Write these down. Carry on until you come to the last pair of leaves and write out your key as a branching key or as numbered key. Now some examples of binomial nomenclature. Humans are given the name Homo sapien. A rose plant is given the name Rosa indica, and the frog is given the name Rana decline. Next, dear students, chapter summary. We are going to summarize the whole chapter within few minutes. Uh, Living things show seven characteristics, which are Mrs. Gren or Grana. A species is a group of organisms that can reproduce to produce fertile offsprings. The binomial system of naming species is an internationally agreed system in which the specific name of an organism is made up of two parts showing the genus and the species. Classification systems are ways of sorting organisms into groups by the features that they share, and such systems try to reflect evolutionary relationships. Keys are used to identify unfamiliar organisms with dichotomous keys having two branches at each stage. The question of bases in DNA are used as a means of classification. Groups of organisms that share a more recent ancestors are more closely related, have more similar base sequences in their DNA than those that share only a distant ancestors. Animals get their food by eating plants or other animals. Plants make their own food by the process called photosynthesis. Arthropods have a hard exoskeleton and joint legs. The classes of arthropods are insects, arachnids, crustaceans, and myriapods. Vertebrates have a vertebrates have spinal cord, spinal column, and skull. And the classes of vertebrates are fish, amphibian, reptiles, birds, and mammals. And prokaryotes are microscopic organisms. They have no proper nucleus. And protists are single-celled organisms containing a nucleus. Fungi are made up of thread-like structures called hyphae, and they are produced by spores. And they have well-developed stems, leaves, and roots. They, they reproduce by spores. Seed-bearing plants reproduce by seeds. And flowering plants have flowers. Their seeds are in an ovary which forms a fruit. They are subdivided into monocots and dicots, and viruses do not possess the features of the living organism. Although some features are present in them as well, but mostly they don't show the characteristics like Mrs. Grant. Okay, dear students, this was about chapter 1, very quick revision. Now we will discuss it later on. If you have any question, you can ask me, and if you don't have any question, then you wish best of luck. Okay. थैंक यू वेरी मच। अल्लाह हाफिज़। एडिटिंग भी होगी, एडिटिंग होगी, जिथे कोई गड़बड़ हो उतों कट के जिथे भुल गए। हाँ हाँ आज कैसी हुई?